Get him, buddy.
The rat adventures and some good old father-son time continued as we headed back into a rat-infested warehouse to help thin the population of what can only be described as a warehouse just completely overrun by rats. And a little bit later in this video, I'm going to take you on a fun trip out to EDgun West headquarters, where we got the full bespoke gun build experience with Brian to build my son's very own Leshiy 2. Back to this crazy warehouse first, though. I got a ton of comments in the first few videos in this series that was questioning how a place could end up like this, like it was neglect of the owners or something. So this is mostly from folks that hunt at grocery stores, but, in fairness, I don't think I ever really explained this fine establishment. This place is a recycling transfer station. It's the first stop after a recycling truck picks up from your house, hotel, whatever. In theory, those cans should be all recyclable material, but it turns out people toss all sorts of stuff in there under the guise of quote-unquote recycling. So this place is where the real separation of garbage and plastic actually happens, and it turns out the excess is a magnet for rats. Shocker, I know. So it's really hard to describe, though. The word infestation just does not do this place justice. If I counted them all, I wouldn't be surprised easily if the number was well over 100,000. And the first time we actually walked in, my buddy told us to tuck our pants into our socks, as it was common for rats to run up your leg. I was like, bro, what? Yeah, and anytime I had to walk down near the floor where these things were everywhere, I was like double-fisted with Leshies. But most of the time we were perched up top here with just the perfect shooting angles to just be blasting away. We're using the 9mm, which is gonna change for my son here on the next trip out to this place, but more on that in a second. 81 grain piece of lead is just crazy overkill, but hey, that's kind of what this channel's all about. But the noise of these things that it makes when it hits them, it's like, I can't even describe it. It sounds like you're popping balloons. We actually need to be pretty careful in here, as these are $1 million machinery here. That in itself isn't really the big deal, because these things are built like tanks. It's the hydraulic lines that you really need to watch for. You pop one of those, and I don't think we'll ever be invited back in this joint. There was 4 of us shooting into this pile, each with our own little sector of fire to help mitigate the risk of shooting something that we shouldn't. You could just see how far this trash pile goes, and the rats were literally everywhere. Shots would range anywhere from 15 yards when they were kind of right below us to about 75 if you wanted to reach out and touch one near that back wall. I was just going to town on the ones in the back and just emptying mag after mag. And by the end, my hand was cramping from pulling the trigger so much. It was just like a turkey shoot. Honestly, if we just had somebody just sitting there loading mags all night, we probably would have shot another 1,000 of them each. But in all honesty, my trigger finger didn't mind the occasional break to load a few mags or top off the gun. The 9mm get about 4 mags per fill before the pressure in the tank drops below the reg pressure, which will open up accuracy a little bit. We were stretching things out to 6 or even 7 mags, since it really didn't matter. It's not like we were trying to shoot groups. Didn't really matter where you hit a rat with this big of a pellet. The longer shots, though, you definitely would see the pellet drop a little bit more than what you expected. And that was kind of my visual reminder to top off the gun with some air. We each had a carbon fiber tank sitting next to us, which just kept us shooting all night as well. Now back to some closer range ones that were just below us here. The 9mm just absolutely smashes these things. I kept looking over to check in on my son, and he just had this huge grin on his face, squeezing round after round. Typically we get home at around 2 to 3 a.m. from these trips, and tonight was going to be no different. This was going to be a late one. But nothing can beat spending time with him out of the house. Hopefully he feels the same. I think he does, especially by the look on his face. I just kept checking in on him, though, just for that moment where exhaustion is greater than the experience. And that's typically when I know it's time to call it quits. He was doing awesome, though. I've been teaching him and his sisters to shoot for a couple years now, but most of that time is off of, stationary targets with a gun pretty dialed in off of a bench. But these were moving targets off of a tripod. I'm super impressed with how he adapted to the length of pull, too. He's not quite big enough, but that's okay. With the help of a digital scope and not introducing any parallax, it made him pretty easy for him to just sit here and just pick these things off. I was definitely super proud of him. He didn't know this, but I had a little surprise for him when we headed out west for a spring break trip. I took him for an afternoon over at the coolest store that I know of in Southern California called EDgun West to pick out his very own Leshiy 2. When we first walked in, I let him walk around a bit to see all the different guns and different options. The first question he always asked was, is this gun semi-automatic? If yes, well, he'd have a few follow-up questions, but if not, that boy was moving on, and this kid definitely knows what he likes. Ultimately, and as expected, the wall of Leshiy 2s were like a magnet, and they drew him in, and he's definitely a chip off the old block, that's for sure. He was focused on the shorter barrel options after walking around the woods a few times with me with a larger airgun. The overall length and weight were important factors for him. And he settled in on this 350mm version, which is the perfect blend of a tiny little gun and power. Next up was finding the perfect scope, and on a tripod the big ATNs work great for him, but they're really heavy, so not really a great option for him for a gun that he's going to be walking around the woods with me too. So he loves thermal though, and this new one I've been testing from Saitong is amazing. It's small in size, make it perfect on the Leshiy 2, and it's also packed with features that just make it a great option for him. You know, I'll drop a link down in the description if you want to watch a quick review video that I did on this particular optic. One of the features that I love about this scope is it's got a built-in mount, but you can also reverse it that Brian was doing here to really kind of drop the scope back even more for that perfect position and eye relief for Jack. You know, he was so excited about this, and while certainly more than the Red Ryder my dad bought me 40 years ago, this one will last him a lifetime, you know, and I also, I probably prepaid the next few years of chores that this kid's gonna do to work this bad boy off, but completely worth it. With everything picked out, we boxed it up and sent her home, and as soon as it arrived, Jack went to work helping our neighbor with a little overwatch over her garden.
See it?
Mm-hmm.
Alright, change the color palette until you find one that you like, so it shows the most contrast, okay?
Okay, get ready.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, perfect shot. Alright, that's just its nerves. Yeah, it does that. That was a perfect shot. It's dead. Oh. Yeah. There's a little rat right here. Get it. You want to change the color palette too? Okay. Try the red one. Oh, you see how that's perfect? Yeah. Alright. Slow. Oh, what a shot. Nice. Thanks again to Brian over at EDgun West for making this all possible. This is one lucky and happy kid. And if you want more info on building your own Leshiy 2, I'll drop a link near the top of the description. Alright, now let's get back to these rats. You know, this little garbage feeder thing here was a magnet for these things. I must have killed 50 of them in this exact spot. They would just fall right into these bins below. Made easy cleanup for the morning shift. These little short shots were easy pickings, and I ripped through so much ammo and air just popping away. After about 50 shots or so, I decided to take a break and load up a bunch of magazines and watch Jack just smoke them. He was getting a little close to some machinery here, so I had a little gentle reminder from time to time. But other than that, this kid is a natural. You know, EDgun Leshiy Jr. is definitely racking up the rat kills tonight. Both the Saitong and ATN, for that matter, scopes allow you to watch on a phone in real time, which is a really cool feature, as it's a great training tool because I can see what he's aiming at. But you guys have heard me yap enough, so let's do what I was at this point, sitting in a chair just watching on my phone, and let's watch this young man just do his thing. we took over at least 1,000 rats this night. And walking out, the trash piles, man, they looked like they were still moving. We didn't even put a dent in them, which, you know, in my mind is a good thing. For starters, I don't work here, so no big deal in that regard. I don't have to deal with this mess. But the real reason, well, selfish. We get to come back and do it all again here soon. This big bull thinks you want to watch this video next. Make sure to smash that like and subscribe button on your way out too.